rolling.
Okay, Brad. Now that we talked a little bit about what brought you into the Y, what you like doing and things like that, let's talk about what you would like to accomplish here. What are some of your goals?
Okay. So I want to lose weight. You know, that's one way you can kind of keep score. So when you think about the motivation, that's definitely part of it. The other part is the ability to cardiovascular strength in terms of being able to sustain cardio.
Okay.
Like if you were telling me right now, Brad, go run a mile, that's not happening. You know.
Okay.
But something around that.
Okay. How much weight were you thinking that you'd like to lose?
In what kind of time frame?
We'll say ultimate goal.
Ultimate goal?
Yeah.
Okay. It's like my fighting weight. If I could, see, that's a big number. Like that's scary for me to even say.
That's okay. I'm carrying.
Okay. Like 70.
Okay.
That's a huge number, though.
It is a big number. But why that number? Were you 70 pounds lighter at a point in your life?
Oh yeah.
How old were you?
College.
Okay.
I think after college, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know, but I think so.
And how did you feel when you were at that weight?
Oh, I still felt heavy. I still felt like the heavy guy, but I didn't feel like it slowed me down as much.
Okay. How about how that weight reflected your cardiovascular health? Did you feel like you could go and do a soccer game and play the full 90 minutes?
Yeah, I'm a goalkeeper, so soccer is more standing and short sprints and jumping. But yes, I felt stronger that way.
Okay.
I used to be a lot more outdoorsy, you know.
Okay.
And at that weight, I could, you know, hike and walk, you know, and long distances and feel really good, you know.
Okay. Obviously, 70 pounds will be the long-term goal.
Mm-hmm.
There are more healthy standards as we do short-term. So when we look at something like 3 months opposed to 6 months opposed to a year, that's how we'll break down what your long-term goal with that is. Now, instead of cardiovascular, you said you'd be able to run a mile. Well, is it that you want to run a mile, or is it that you want to be able to be the best goalie you can be? For the full 90
I say
minutes.
yes to both.
Okay.
So yes to both. So that competing, I know that if I was lighter, I'd feel more spry and I think I'd compete better.
Okay.
So this past spring for the Cap for Kids, so Jim and I, we walked the 5K and that felt good. That felt successful. But the ability to, it's another long term, would be the ability to not walk but to actually run locomotion a 5K would be a goal.
Okay. Are we thinking a year from now for the next Cap for Kids, or are we thinking more of the October marathon 5K?
I don't know. So I can kind of get a sense maybe of how, in terms of pounds, you know, like I think I can figure out what a healthy rate is of decline for a weight, but I don't know what a healthy increase in, you know, how quickly my body would respond to cardio to be able to build up endurance that way. That I don't know. I don't have a sense of that.
Okay. Well, there is a little bit of, you know, trial and error with that, but also making sure that we create a program for you that doesn't overtrain you, but challenges you enough to get you to a point.
Okay.
After this, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the calendar and see what races we have for the remainder of the year. And let's set one up. Let's get you signed up for one. That way we can start the training process. Don't pick one this next week.
Right.
We'll pick one for a few months down the road. That way we can work up to the 3.2 miles.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're going to go over part of the Smart Start, and we're going to go over and talk about some barriers. Okay. So I'd like you to do this with me. So we're going to start with some environmental barriers. And as you'll see, there's some numbers here. 1 is not true. 4 is very true. Okay, so let's go over each one. How do you feel about where you live in relation to the Ys that you work out at?
So I obviously work at the Y, so there's not much of a barrier excuse there.
Okay.
And my house is it's a couple miles, but it's a little bit of a barrier there getting my wife to come with me.
Okay.
But I work at the Y, so that should not be a barrier.
Okay.
I feel that I don't live close enough, so I would say that is mostly false, so not true.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, we talked a little bit earlier about time in your day.
Mhm.
Okay, and we said, we'd like to be able to do 2 extra days where we're actually not part of a league, but we're doing some form of workout. Where would you rate your time scale on this in terms of committing to the...
I would say that everyone's given the same amount of time.
Right.
So I think that time is a very easy excuse. I don't have time, so I would say I'd say a 2.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what about weather? Luckily, you work at the Y, so that
Right.
makes life a little bit easier. But how do you feel when we get the polar vortex and you're on your own
Yeah.
on a weekend?
Yeah, that's not very motivating. Hesitant to adjust my schedule based on weather. I feel very indifferent about that one.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Give it
Yeah.
2 and 3. Now, are there any other environmental factors that you feel may be a hindrance to your goals?
I'd say no.
Okay. So let's talk social barriers. You just mentioned that, trying to convince your wife to come into the Y with you. How do you feel about support from your family in terms of making a commitment to be more active?
I don't feel like I have support, so I would say that's 2, not very true.
Okay.
Mhm.
What about adding lifestyle changes to the home and your family?
Struggle. I'd say again 2, not very true.
Okay. And then what about your friends?
I think compared to family, I think they're probably more. That weight is it's a social thing,
Mhm.
But I feel that, so when I'm in social settings, I feel like, oh, I'm the fat guy in the room, So I think that on that framework, I would say that there is support there.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's 1. Are there any other social barriers that you can think of?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. So let's talk about the physical barriers then. We thought, obviously we're not going to get you on the treadmill and say, great, now you're doing full out sprints.
Right.
Are there any aspects, like your knee, for example, may act up if you run for too long or exercise too long, anything like that? Is there
Yeah.
anything physical that
I mean, I
cause a
think
hindrance?
at the weight that I am right now, there are some things that it's just like, oh, that, like, I know that's not going to feel good later on.
Okay.
But not too much that holds me back right now from doing that, I would say.
Okay.
So I would say I'd say 2, not very true.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, in the terms of going and stopping that we've had a
Mhm.
history of doing, has any of the past attempts of stopping the exercise program discouraged you from coming back and restarting?
I'd say yeah. I'd say that's a 3 probably.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then what happens if you're trying to save a goal and you fall and hurt your hip? Will that be something that keeps you from coming in and working out?
It's possible. I mean, like, if I was hurt and unable to play or do other things like that, that would be demotivating, I think.
Okay.
hmm
Even if it was just like a bruise and some soreness?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Mhm.
So,
Thankfully, no major injuries
okay.
thus far.
All right, excellent. That's
Mhm.
very, very good. So let's go ahead and let's put that at a 2. Obviously, a major injury will affect some things that we do here
Mhm.
anyway, but in terms of bruises and some bumps
Yeah.
and scrapes. All right, good. Is there any other physical barrier that you can see being an obstacle in our path?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that we can do to overcome these barriers.
Okay.
So that we can find a way to make us as successful as possible, as well as keep it long term.
Okay.
Okay. We we talked a little bit about environmental. There's really not anything that's going to keep you from coming in, mostly because you work at a Y. But even you're relatively close to the Y. It looks to be more social and some physical barriers that are going to be the areas of concern that we'll just want to keep an eye on. Okay. You're lucky enough to have friends and family that are going to support you with this. And that's, I think we need to harness some of that. I think a lot of your friends, especially on the soccer league that you're on, will be very glad to help you and support you along the way. So that's great. Let's make sure that we can identify some areas of the family and the at home that we can adjust. Okay, so say maybe your wife doesn't like eating asparagus. What are things that we can make at home in terms of nutritional choices that can help, that would be more supportive in that area? What are some things that we can get you and her to do together that are activity based, like the Columbus walk the park things? Like, what can we do to get you both outside and doing something together to help, her be more supportive of you, and you be supportive of her? Okay. Physical barriers. That's where we come in. Okay, so when we're going to write up this program for you, we're going to make sure that you're not overtraining and that we're not doing anything that's going to prevent you from being active. Okay, so injury prevention. How are you with stretching? Excellent.
Yeah.
So there's going to be stretching in there. Okay. One of the things that didn't get asked you, but I would like to know, so you work at the Y. Are you sitting all day or are you standing all day?
Okay, so update on that. I sit a heck of a lot.
Okay.
And I'd say, so when I transitioned jobs, I think that was a big thing for me. I was like, God, I'm sitting a lot, So with my fitness band, I just realized that I'm very inactive during the day. So this weekend, my father and I are building my standing desk. So I'm going to rock that to see.
Okay.
There's some anecdotal evidence that, at least not standing full time, but I'm fidgety. So I'm going to fidget more if I'm standing and just do some little things like that.
Okay.
But if I don't think about it intentionally, I could sit at my desk for hours during the day.
So
and that's bad.
The reason I ask that is common injuries for people who sit all day is back problems.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that that does not become an issue either, because those can be quite debilitating. And the best things for those are core exercises and stretching. Okay, so we'll make sure that we want to take care of some of that. So in terms of the physical barriers, we want to create a program that incorporates, making sure that we're preventing any injuries, making sure that we can get ourselves, to the points where we want to be, without dragging yourself down, without overtraining and making you more exhausted, which would give you an excuse to not come in.
Right.
Okay. Social barriers we discussed. Trying to find things to do with your wife. Okay. We have lots of activities around, so there are plenty of things to do. You can go to a festival and walk around. Obviously, you'll want to make smart choices when it comes to the food at these festivals.
Right.
But there are plenty of things to do. And I think once the both of you are active together, then that support will come naturally. Okay? And then you can have your own league thing too, and do your own thing. Okay? So, we covered sort of the plan, an overall plan. We covered the goals, what we want to break down in terms of that. So let's go ahead and let's set up our next appointment and start getting a little bit more, crap, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit more specific in terms of some of the breakdown and some introspective aspects. Okay, so let's set up that next appointment. When are you available next?
Next Wednesday.
Okay, what time Wednesday?
10 a.m.
Okay, so our next appointment is going to be next Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 10:30.
Okay.
All right, so what we would like to do between now and Smart in the next session.
Mhm.
What are some things that you would like to accomplish in between now and then?
Okay, so I can't use what I already have scheduled because that's, so I already have kickball tonight and soccer.
Correct.
So, so between now and next week, so right now we're in the Body of Iron challenge,
Okay,
and I haven't done it. I have not tracked a single thing yet.
okay,
I'm halfway through the month. So between now and next Wednesday, I will commit to, I will attract 2 forms of I'm gonna use locomotion twice. 2 forms of like bike and run, or run and swim. 2 of those 3 forms of movement between now and next Wednesday.
okay, I think that's absolutely great.
Okay.
Alright, so we'll get 2 aspects of Body of Iron between now and next Wednesday.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Well, here's my card, and I will see you next Wednesday. Feel free to email if you have any questions.
Great.